Hello friends, welcome back to another week. This week is the fourth video in our series of our food, what we eat, and how we do so for $80 a week for our family of 4. Now, that's breakfasts, lunches, dinners, snacks, and everything else for just $80 a week. If you missed our other videos, check them out above. We did breakfasts already, we did lunches, we did dinners. And so this week, we're doing the extras. For us, we really want to focus on the gut health extras. For us, that's become something that's very important. It's been a large part of our healing, both spiritually, physically, in every sort of way. And so this week, we're going to talk about the water kefir and the milk kefir that Rob makes, the sourdough starter that he also makes. We'll go over the fire tonic that I make. And then I'm going to go over some of the tips and tricks that I use to keep my budget so low. Now, this $80 a week average, is that just an average? To go over, I did not record the Aldi shop that I did this week, but if you can see here, we carried over that, what was it, $29 from the bulk buy, and then I spent $46 over at Aldi. And so this week, we spent just $75. And then, if you look at, we add up all 4 weeks. So for my family of 4, for 4 weeks worth of food, we spent $290. That's it. $290 for 4 weeks. I used to spend that a week on groceries. And so learning how to do this has been a multi-year step process for us, and so I'm excited to teach you. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoy. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And as always, thank you for supporting us. We love you.
All right. Hey everybody. How's it going? We're going to be talking about water kefir. So water kefir is a way to have a, I guess like a soda-like substance, we'll say, since we don't drink soda, that is, as far as sugar content, to the most minimal you could find. Because of course kefir, which are these grains down the bottom of here, is actually a bacteria that eats, or the kefir grains produce, they produce 36 strains of probiotics by eating sugar as their main food source. And it's a way to naturally get probiotics back into your gut, and it's also a tasty way to do so without the effects of having such a quantity of sugar in your diet, right? Because we all know sugar's not good for you, no matter how much we like to have the taste of it or to try. And of course, when you want to try, change the taste of it, speaking of taste, you can put fruit in there. So we'll put frozen fruit. This one happens to be strawberry, but we'll do any type, really. The sky's the limit with your creativity. What you do is you do your first ferment, which is the actual grains, inside your sugar water, and I put some molasses in here too because I like the taste of it. And then this is the sugar water that I'm going to transfer the grains into, and this is a second ferment. So this means that this has already gone through that process. So this is after I take the grains out of here and place them into the fresh sugar water, and then the remaining is what's a first ferment that's done. And then you can add any fruit or flavoring to make the end result something different than what you started with. So yeah, this is just one of the things we're getting into. So here we got some sourdough starter. This one here, it's been going now for, I think 2.5 months, 3 months. We were able to source it from a very kind woman. I believe her name was Beth. She was kind enough to give us some starter, and of course here we are continuing on our own. It's a fairly straightforward process. What you do is you are activating the wild yeast in the flour by giving it time to ferment, really. So you feed it water and flour daily, and of course you increase or decrease that amount depending on how much starter you have and how much you need to utilize or can utilize for the bread. So this one here, we're actually bulking up. I got a new bread making book, and I'm going to try some kefir bread. So that being said, I was just about to feed it, and I wanted to bring you through the process. So over here we have, it's actually King Arthur all-purpose flour. We got it a little bit of everything. And the Hoosier here, this is just a flour sifter, but you want to be certain on the weights. So I'm doing the weights in grams. And the reason you want to be certain, of course, is the hydration of the sourdough. If you don't have the correct...
Alright, now that we're cleaned up,
Back at it.
we're going to weigh out the flour.
So I'm going for 123. Actually, we're gonna bump that up a little bit more. 144 it is.
Now this Hoosier, we were actually gifted in our local Buy Nothing group. And we restored it back to its former glory, including the flour sifter and her shelves and the proving drawer. And Rob uses it daily.
So we're gonna add the flour to it. And then, of course, we need well, we need some water. I was going to use the water kefir, but we don't have it.
Strawberry water kefir isn't going to taste so good with that.
So,
The thing to remember is when you're adding the water, however much you add it in, let's turn this around so we can read it. However much you add it in flour, you need to do the same in water.
if you want 100% hydration, of course. There are recipes that call for different hydration ratios. I find that 100% hydration has never steered me wrong. And 144 it is. You add it right to it. And then you go ahead and you give it a good stir.
How long does it have to sit before you can use it?
So it depends on your temperature in your area where you're keeping the sourdough, but anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. What you're looking for is you're looking for it to be just before it's gonna drop. As far as the rise, it will rise double in size when it's at its peak. Of course, is when the yeast is most active.
And what have you made so far with the starter?
Oh, we've made breads, bagels, donuts, cookies, scones. I just keep going with it, to be honest with you. We just got a book from the local library about sourdough, so I'm going to try some new recipes as well. Yeah, it's quite a fun thing to get into.
let's talk fire tonic. This magical liquid that I started making back in 2017. Back then, Rob, recently diagnosed with Lyme disease, suffered from daily symptoms, and he was being put on dosage after dosage after dosage of antibiotics. I found someone on the internet whose husband was dealing with something similar, and she had come across fire tonic. Really? That simple? She swore by it, and so I had to try it for myself. You take apple cider vinegar and you put in horseradish and ginger and turmeric and garlic and white onion and hot pepper and cinnamon and sometimes some lemon and rosemary and thyme, and you let it ferment for as long as it wants to sit, at least 4 to 6 weeks. I have some that's been sitting in the cabinet now for about a year, all because we haven't really needed this as much. Rob used to take this every day in the morning, shot in the morning to start his day, to coat his stomach with all of these good nutrients and biotics and all these good things. He doesn't have to take it anymore. We only use this when we're actually starting to feel a little sick. If we're getting a little bit of a sore throat, we have a runny nose coming on, this is our go-to. We take fire tonic, we take elderberry syrup, and that's it. Through this entire pandemic, through everything that happened, we didn't go to the doctors once. We weren't sick once. We took care of our bodies, and in turn, our bodies took care of us. That's what your food is. Your food takes care of your body. And so, fire tonic is something that I don't think we'll ever be able to live without. I did write a blog about it. I will link that below. So to check it out, I give you all you need, all the tips and tricks you need to make it yourself. And we also have it for sale on our web shop. I only have 2 bottles left, so chances are by the time you're seeing this, I may not have any left. But check out our web shop to see if we do. So the first thing that I want to touch base on, and what I think is probably the most important question to ask yourself when going over your budget, is where your food is coming from. Now I say this for 2 reasons. One, you want to know that your food is coming from as local of a source as possible. The earth that we walk on beneath our feet responds to our energy. And so the more local the food is to where you are as a human being, the more that food's going to nourish your body. And that's what we believe. And so when we choose the things that we buy, particularly our fresh produce, we always shop local. For us here in Rhode Island, we have farmers markets on Saturdays in the wintertime. There's also a few local farmers markets here in Exeter that have stayed open and that I can go shopping at. What this does mean though is that our produce is limited to what's seasonal here in New England. We eat a lot of squash, a lot of potatoes, and a lot of dried beans because that's what we have. The key when knowing and keeping your food local is that you adapt and you make things according to what you can find, not necessarily what you crave. And that was a big change for us. But what helped push us into that was buying everything local, because if I can't find it, then I just wasn't going to do it. Now, it's been very rare. I honestly can't think of anything that I haven't been able to find local. I mean, we make some substitutions. We use maple syrup instead of regular sugar, but there hasn't been anything that I haven't been able to find that was local to New England. So we're in Rhode Island. It's the smallest state. It's very illogical to think that we can get all the food that we need within our small state. So I try to get as local as I can, as close to me as I can, but New England is a very small area, and there are some states that you could drive 500 miles and not be able to get any of that food. And so I keep that in mind as well. I'm more apt to go buy cheese from Vermont than I am to get cheese from Wisconsin, because the gas it took to get that cheese to me is much less in Vermont than it would be in Wisconsin. And those are the things that I encourage you to start thinking about. Where is this food coming from? Where? When you shop is just as important as where you shop. So for us, we found that when we shopped more often, we spent a lot more money. So what we do is, as you saw, we do one large bulk buy every month. Those are for our staples. The oats, the flours, the dried fruits, the pantry things and the pantry staples that will last the entire month. And then weekly, we go out just once. There are some exceptions to the rule, but we try to go out just once every week to get that fresh produce or the things that we need to make up for the meals that we don't have at home. When it comes to food, when to buy it and when to eat it is important. For us, we do not snack when we're bored. I found, for me particularly, that whenever I was bored, watching TV or doing something mindless, as I like to call it, I would love snacking. For no reason. I wasn't hungry. Once I stopped doing it, I stopped being hungry like that. And that was a way that I really saw the hold that food had over me. By using food as something to replace boredom or entertainment, you're retraining what that food is doing to your body. That food is no longer nourishing your body. And now this food is being used as a placeholder for something else. And so, for us, we find it very important to not snack when we're bored. We only eat at the kitchen or dining room table, but we only eat at tables. We don't walk around and eat. We are very mindful about the food that we do eat and when we do eat it. Because by doing that, it's intentional. And it goes right into our bodies and nurtures our bodies instead of being something that can cause density and disease within our body. So how do you get out of the habit of snacking? Because let's face it, when you're in the habit of doing that, it's very hard to break it. One thing that we did, and we still do, is we make snacks every Sunday night, or Sunday day, or whenever we have time. We make granola bars, we make muffins, we make cakes that are low in sugar, or we use natural sweeteners, so that way we don't get that crazy sugar high. We're conscious about the things that we keep in our house for us to eat, and by doing so, when we do get that urge, because we do still get the urge to snack, or sometimes food just makes us feel better still. And so when we do that, we make sure that we have healthier options available. Because if we had nothing available, I'd just drive down to Cumberland Farms and go get myself a Snickers. I did it for years. There's nothing wrong with it. The only time it becomes something wrong is when it becomes wrong for you and your body. And for me, 5 or 6 years ago, my body started screaming at me to no longer put certain foods in it. I was talking to Rob earlier and telling him how when I used to go out for a night out in the town with the ladies, I would bring my fancy purse and I'd load it up with all my things. 2 things that I always had to take with me was ibuprofen and Pepto-Bismol. I would get headaches and stomach aches from everything that I was consuming. But instead of not consuming it any longer, I brought medication to stop those things from happening. That's an option. I did it. It worked out well for me at the time, or so I thought. Now, I choose to not put those things in my body and not have to take medication. I can't tell you the last time I had to take medication to make myself feel better. I really can't. Wow, that's a realization. So when it comes to local food, the best food is the kind you can grow yourself. For many people, that means many different things. For us, we have a 1.78 acre homestead, and we do with that as much as we can. We raise our own chickens, so we get eggs and we get meat. We raise goats, and so we've gotten milk. They're not in milk right now, So right now, they're just some pets. And then during the spring, summer, and fall months, we have a garden. For you, if you don't have the land, you can grow on patios, in containers. You can grow microgreens in windowsills. The more food that you yourself have control over, the healthier you're going to be, and the better off your body's going to be, and the safer you're going to feel. This past year, 2020, was a crazy one. The fear that came over last spring, a lot of people, when the toilet paper run happened, didn't affect this household. You see, I don't have everything that I need in the house, but I know that I have what I need around me, and if I needed to, I could probably grow what I needed. It'd be a little hungrier than normal, but I don't need to rely on the grocery store. Another thing in regards to where we buy our food, we don't support corporate chain grocery stores. I'm not going to name names because everywhere we live, everyone has something different. But when you walk into that grocery store and there's nothing but name brands surrounding you, we don't go there. Those are boxes full of disease. All processed food strips away the gut health in your stomach. Your gut is the center point of your body. Your gut is what makes sure everything can work properly. It makes sure that our brain can run the way that it needs to, make sure our legs can move the way they need to, our heart can feel the way that it needs to, everything and anything in between there. So, how do we do it? How do we eat as a family of 4 for just $80 a week? Well, I have a few tips. One thing that we do is weekends we bulk cook. Like I previously mentioned, we make snacks. We make the granola bars or the muffins, but I also cook beans in bulk on the weekends. Always 2 kinds, it always varies, but I cook them in bulk in the pressure cooker and then put them in glass jars in the fridge. What this does is it gives me a quick and easy protein source when I'm looking for something to eat for dinner. So budget-wise, that's in your control. You decide where and when and how you spend your money. And so for us, keeping to that $80 a week became almost like a challenge. I'm a competitive person. I like a challenge. And trying to get our food budget as low as possible, with still eating delicious meals, became a fun game for me, which is why I'm sharing it with you all. This is something that was fun for me. Every week being able to create these meals together or separately or for each other brings us all joy. This isn't a task for us. It's not hard for us. We absolutely love doing it, and that's why we're sharing it with you. Food shouldn't have to be something you dread. You shouldn't dread making yourself something to eat. We need very few things as human beings to survive. Food is one of them. And you should enjoy it. Every bite, every meal, it should make you feel good and also have no consequences on your body afterward. One other major rule that we follow is no takeout. None whatsoever. Me and Rob were the takeout king and queen. If you missed our gut health video in the podcast that we talked about that, check it out. We do talk a lot more about the takeout that we used to eat a lot more, but now we found that that's where the majority of our food budget went. I would spend $200 a week on groceries and then spend another $150 on pizza and Chinese and all of these different takeout foods because I was exhausted from everything else that I was taking up my time with. That's another thing. If you're doing so much throughout your day that you're too exhausted to cook yourself food, I challenge you to think about what you're doing. Food should be more important than anything else. I understand we need to work. I understand those are things that need to happen in order to afford that food. But there are small decisions that we make throughout the day to do things instead of nurturing our bodies. And I challenge you, friends, to listen to your body on the inside more than what's on the outside. Instead of going and getting that fresh haircut, stay home and make yourself some sauerkraut. Instead of going to get your nails done, why don't you stay home and bake a loaf of sourdough bread? Really nurture what you need as a human soul on the inside in that gut of yours. So I did write a blog about this, and I will link that below. But I do want to share with you the few places that I do shop locally for my staples and for my food. Grocery store wise, the only two grocery stores that I shop at are Dave's Marketplace and Aldi. Both companies have different standards. Dave's does do a lot of local, they do get a lot of local food vendors. They try to get local foods before they extend outward. Aldi has committed themselves, while that food isn't necessarily as local, they provide seasonal food, as well as they have made a commitment to their patrons that they will be taking all synthetic food dyes and things out of their food. The food system in America is broken. The fact that the ketchup that you get here has double the amount of ingredients than you get anywhere else in the world should say something to everyone. Should get your brain working and should really get you to start thinking about where your money is going. Every time you buy that that name brand, or you go to that corporate store, you're telling that company, I support you. I believe in what you're putting out there, and I'm going to buy your product. If everything that you spent your money or energy on had to mean something to you, would you buy all those products? Would you consume that food? If the answer is no, then the task of simplifying your budget is easy. It's easy. You just don't buy the things. If you don't buy those things, you don't spend the money. I get off topic. I'm sorry. So Aldi, Dave's are the two markets that I buy from. I buy food in bulk from Ocean State Job Lot. That is a New England thing. So if you're in New England, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, I'm sorry. And there's a local discount grocery store that I go to. It's called A Little Bit of Everything. It's in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and they get bulk discount food. It's essentially the food that's close to expiration date, and or they weren't able to sell it at these big bulk chains, and this place does consume it. You are still getting foods that are from bigger companies. I try to go there, and this is where I get all my organic ingredients, because it is very expensive to eat organically, and it's not always possible locally to get produce and flour and things that it just isn't. And so there are exceptions that we have to make. However, knowing these things, the more people that fight for local food and for food that nourishes our body and doesn't poison us, the more the systems will change. Our money is what makes the difference. And by sharing what we eat, how we eat, and all of these different tricks and tips, I hope to encourage you to literally put your money where your mouth is. If it doesn't represent you, and that food and that company doesn't represent you, don't put it in your body. Watch how much better you feel. I promise, you will. Let's talk about why. Why we do this. Why we live this way, and why we've made these choices when it comes to food. The reason why we keep a low budget is we are a self-employed, single income family. Both me and Rob take in income, but that combined doesn't equal what we used to make when we used to work full-time jobs. And so we had a choice to make. We could continue doing the 9 to 5 grind and putting all of our energy into something outside of ourselves, or we could make adjustments to our lifestyle and live more authentically. What do I mean by authentically? Well, I mean aligned with who we are, what we believe, and what we represent as human beings. We had a lot of moments of reflection back in 2020. A lot of those were based on food, to be honest with you, or the decisions based on why we eat and why we do what we do. And one of those things was we don't really go out to eat to restaurants. If we do, we go to local places that buy locally, are a small family-owned place. We do our research before we go. You're not going to catch me in a fast food place, or us, ever again. And that's tough. You spend all day, you're out, you're about, you're doing things, you forget to pack yourself something to eat, and you're starving. There's not many options for us. Even when you go to a gas station, even nuts, water that's in a plastic bottle, every decision you make has a reaction. You leave a footprint by being on this planet. Everything you consume leaves a footprint behind. And we really take responsibility for the footprint that we are leaving behind. And there you have it. My short list of tips and tricks to help you save money. Get that budget down to the least amount as possible. If you're spending less on food, imagine where you can spend more. If you have any questions about anything that you saw or anything that I said, please leave it in the comments below. Thank you so much for supporting us. I hope you have a good rest of your day, week, night, whatever it is for you. I hope it's wonderful. We love you. Thank you for supporting us. We'll see you next week.